how can I personally develop myself to where I am the best version of myself, not only on the outside, but on the inside as well. So reading books and going through courses and going to conferences and watching YouTube videos and making a conscious approach to only put things into your brain or into your body that are going to make you better. And it's hard to do because you have everything else that's so much easier. Is it easier to cook a chicken, rice, and broccoli, or is it easier to go to McDonald's? You tell me. It's way easier to go to McDonald's, but it's doing the things that are harder.
Welcome to the Gentleman's Success, Happiness, and Fulfillment Talk podcast, where we bring to you the most successful, happy, fulfilled gentlemen from around the world who have been able to conquer themselves, their life, their marriage, and their businesses. You will be learning from four-dimensional gentlemen who have cracked the code to the science of having it all. The question is, how can married entrepreneurs with kids become gentlemen, achieve true freedom, and build a successful, happy, and fulfilled life, marriage, and business? This show will give you the answer for that. My name is Alex Ramirez, and I'm your host, and you're welcome to the Gentleman's Success, Happiness, Fulfillment Talk podcast. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Gentleman's Success, Happiness, and Fulfillment Talk podcast. As always, I have a very special guest. This modern gentleman is someone who I've known for quite a while. So I'm very excited to get to talk to him and get to call this work, right? And before I introduce him to you, though, I just want to give a big shout out to all of you who have been leaving comments, reviews, likes on all the major podcasting platforms, Apple, Google, Spotify, and to those who have been watching on YouTube as well. Thank you very much. And I want to ask you for a favor. I want to ask you that if you get something out of this interview, you get something out of listening to this podcast or watching it, some kind of value, some piece of information, a feeling, something that leads you to take action, I want to ask you to please share it with one friend, since this is how we grow. This is how we share our message. This is how we motivate, inspire, and bless others to change their lives. And I would be really glad if you did and grateful for it. So thank you. And today I have Brady Morgan with me. He's the founder of Virtual Assistant Staffing Agency. And Virtual Assistant Staffing Agency is regarded as one of the top outsourcing companies for small to medium-sized businesses in the United States and Canada. And it has plans to disrupt the industry by offering a technology solution for boosting efficiency in remote workforce management. VASA, is that like the acronym? VASA also provides custom operating systems for businesses needing assistance with automation, standard operating procedures, which means SOPs, and workflow management. Brady has a background in finance, having worked in both investment banking and healthcare. He is a husband, father, entrepreneur, enjoys reading, working out, spending time with his wife and son. And I'm very excited to have you, Brady. Thank you very much for being here, man. Thank you very much for making time, and welcome.
Yeah, Alex, I appreciate you having me, man.
So Brady, the first thing that I do with my guests, man, is I tell them to walk us through their entrepreneur journey in 75 seconds or less.
75 seconds or less. So started a podcast when I was still working corporate. From there, it grew to number 33 for entrepreneurship in America. In the meantime, I had started a fractional CFO business. Didn't really work out, but I got introduced to the concept of outsourcing. And we recognized that there were a lot of gaps in the outsourcing and virtual assistant world. So we closed up shop on the fractional CFO, dove all in on VASA, and that's where we're at today. Utilize a lot of the connections made through the podcast to grow it initially. And we had a business for 2 years now, and it's been good. We're growing every single year.
Cool. Pretty straight to the point, concise, and good story, right? It's not like those typical stories of the typical entrepreneur, the typical old school entrepreneurs who like are building and burning and building and burning and building and burning, right? I bet that, like me, you just want to build.
Yeah, and I'm not gonna lie, like it's hard. There's definitely times where you want to burn and you want to just give up everything and whatnot. But it's where you make it through those moments that make it truly worth it. Running a business or a podcast or anything entrepreneurial is not easy. We both know that, but it's important to just keep pushing forward and understand why you started in the first place.
Yeah. So why did you start it in the first place, man?
Well, we saw the gaps, right? And we recognized that there was a lot of agencies in the outsourcing and staffing world that were placing talent solely based off of skill. And that's fine for some instances. But what we recognized is there's a lot more components to that formula that I have to take into a place to make it a successful relationship. So you have culture fit and you have English proficiency. So we placed from the Philippines, and recognizing that the English language is not their first language, but pretty much everybody in the Philippines speaks English. But even though pretty much everybody speaks English, you have to make sure that each individual can speak it on a proficient level, since we are working with Canadian and US-based business owners. But we saw this gap to where people who were underqualified, all they had was a little bit of experience in the specific skill set. You were still missing those other two components of communication and culture fit. So we filled that gap. And now what we do is we not only place staff, but we also manage the staff for people. So we're a legal entity in the Philippines. We are able to offer benefits legally. We are able to serve the Filipinos in a more traditional and culturally accepted way. So it allows us to reduce turnover and further help our clients fulfill that success they need with that relationship.
Nice. Awesome, man. So yeah, so I want to get more into that, but there's something that came to mind which I wanted to like talk about. So you said like, you know, a lot of entrepreneurs talk about like building and burning. They go through life, you know, they build an amazing company, then they get a divorce. Then a couple of years later, they find themselves broke again, just to like be able to like build it back again. And then they do it again. And then until they finally learn all the lessons. And you said, you know, there's sometimes this feeling to want to burn, man. So can you talk about that?
There's sometimes this feeling where stuff gets so hard that it would be easier to just throw in the towel and give up. That's kind of what I mean by that. You know, and I think every entrepreneur in some way feels that way, regardless of whatever stage they're in. Because it's hard, man. It is hard. Like you said, like I'm a business owner. It's a growing business. We have a team of 10 people now, and they look to me, right, to lead them. And that's fine. Like I that empowers me and motivates me. But then you have to think there's a completely other side of my life where I'm a dad, I'm a husband, and that is more important to me than business. So, but you have to understand that there's this thing about time where you're building a business, but you don't get to spend as much time with what's truly important to you, which is your family, because you're building your business.
Oh, that
can affect you. That can affect you, right? When you have a little kid and you're like, man, like I would rather spend time with them, but I have to sit at my desk. I have to go to this meeting. I have to talk to this person, because if not, what's going to happen to the business? And maybe nothing's going to happen to the business. All right. So it's important to understand that going into this, there's going to be that dynamic of where you're not going to be able to truly spend your time where you want to spend your time, but it's worth it. I love growing the business. I love my team. I love everything about it, but I love my family more. Right. So there's that aspect of when you're putting so much time into something, you kind of think about, you know, yes, I'm building this business for them, but at the same time, I would rather be spending time with them. So it's one of those things where things get hard, things get tough, things get stressful. It's like, man, I should just throw in the towel and go the easy route, easy traditional corporate route. But no, that's not worth it. Business has grown really, really well. And I know, you know, I'm 26 years old now. I'm building for me and my future, me and my family's future. That's the most important thing.
Yeah. And then this gets into a very complicated paradox, right? Because you say, imagine you have a kid, a boy, right?
Yeah, 1 year old. Yep.
So then imagine, you know, a couple of years from now, he asks you, man, Dad, like, why can you spend more time with me, right? And then you tell him, well, because I'm building this business for you. But like the kid doesn't even want you to build that business.
They don't understand.
Like, yeah, right. And it gets like this very complicated paradox. And then that kid grows up thinking that the reason why his dad was working so hard is because of him. And the reason he's not spending time with them is because of him. So then he feels guilty, right? And it's a very complicated paradox to like to deal with as a husband, father, and entrepreneur, right?
Which I've also heard this as well, and I kind of agree on both sides, right? Where, you know, as my son gets older, and my wife always wants me to spend more time with them, obviously, but she understands, like she understands I'm growing the business, etc. But he, first of all, doesn't understand right now. He doesn't understand that I'm up here working, and it doesn't bother him either way. As he gets older, he will want me to spend more time because, like, it's my son. He wants to spend time with daddy, and he wants to do different things outside and all that stuff, and that's great. But I still think that he'll still have that that naive mindset to where he still doesn't really understand. Like if I'm working Like, okay, like it's dad works, that's fine. But it's where my mind is right now is, man, I would really rather spend time with them because that's what's most important in my life. But my business is also very important to me. And my team is very important to me. And what we're doing and changing is very important to me. And I'm doing this not only for the clients and the people that we serve, but also for my family's future. Because I understand consistency here and hard work here is going to pave a really nice path for my family and I to where we're still young. I will have the time back because, hey, I spent a lot of years grinding to really put the systems and processes in place to be able to step away and things are still getting done. And I don't have to be there. But it takes a lot of work to get to that point. So a lot of people who have that time freedom now, I think what they fail to say is it took a lot of hard work to get to that point. And that's what people have to understand is like, you can automate all you want, you can outsource all you want, but it's not that easy. It is not that easy. You have to have the systems and processes and the know-how to actually make it continuously spin without you being there. And that's my whole goal here is how can I grow this business to as big as it can possibly be to a point to where I am able to step away if I want to spend time with what's truly important to me, which is my family. And hopefully by the time that happens, we plan on having more. My son is 4 or 5 years old. We have other kids and it's like, wow, I have a business that is continuously churning out revenue and income for me. We're providing a ton of value and we have put the necessary people in place that are owning their specific departments and processes and systems within the business. And I am able to live the life that I want to live. That is my whole goal there.
Feels so good, huh?
Oh yeah. It feels good. And it's a grind, man. People don't talk about like life is hard and being like, I know people who have hard lives who don't have kids. So then it's like you add kids to the mix and you add a family to the mix. And it's like, what I understood with having a family is that you kind of have to stop being selfish. And I mean that in a way of you can't just do what you want to do anymore. Let's say it's 10 o'clock at night and my son needs a bath or whatever, and we got to have dinner. I can't just go to a bar with my friends. I can't just do that because guess what? I have another obligation. But the same thing is like, as you're growing up and as you start adding different responsibilities, you have an obligation to those responsibilities to be there and to show up and to be present. So that is my whole goal is I want to be present. I want to show up. I want to take responsibility and I want to be the best version of myself I can business wise, but also the best version of myself as a dad and a husband.
Yeah, really, really interesting perspectives, man. So for very interesting perspectives, we don't have the same perspective. It's really cool, right? It's really cool. That's what the world is about. That's what these podcasts are about. So like, I feel that I'm building my business for me. I'm doing it for me, right? And that I'm doing it for me so that I can like lead by example, so that I can show my family that anything is possible. But obviously I'm doing it for them, but I don't feel like I'm doing it for them. You know what I'm saying? So
yeah. And I see that as well, right? Like I'm the one putting in the work. I'm the one grinding. I'm the one doing this. And I am growing myself as a result of putting in the work and challenging myself, etc. But for me, my perspective is like, am I doing it for me? Sure. But I'm not going to say I'm doing my business for me because at the end of the day, the people that I serve are more important than me being happy. I would rather eat shit and have my team and have my clients happy and fulfilled and know that we're providing value. And that's fine. That's just the way I was raised and that's the way I am. But same thing is I'm working hard for my why. And what is my why? My why is my family. Because I understand that I can work hard doing this, or I can work hard and working for somebody else. But this is harder. And if I was truly doing this for me to where I wanted to be comfortable by myself, and this is the way I'm viewing things, then I would just go get a W-2 or corporate job and not have any responsibilities. I'm not taking work home. I'm not doing any of that because guess what? I'm not working for myself. I don't care what happens because it's not mine. I don't have that functional ownership of that business. But for here, I have this functional ownership, and what drives me to keep pushing forward, it's not so that I can be comfortable. It's because I am working hard, because at the end of the day, why am I doing this? Because I see myself 3 to 5 years from now having a business churning out tons of revenue
being free.
For me, being free, but not only from a financial perspective, but from a time perspective, so I can spend time with what's important to me, which is my family.
Yeah. Physical freedom, emotional freedom, financial
Everything.
freedom, sentimental
Exactly.
freedom, right? So what I say when I say that I'm doing it for me is that I'm doing it because of like to fulfill my purpose, right? Which is to help men become modern gentlemen. So it's something that not only I get to do, that I want to do. And then to the other thing, you know, I really like your perspective, which you say that you got to be more selfish, right? When you got to be less selfish when you have a, you know, kids and a wife, because now like you cannot go to like the bar and then have the baby crying at 2 a.m. and having your wife take care of him by herself. And I think, well, first of all, I don't even want to go to the bar. Like,
I
you know,
don't
like,
either. I don't either.
right?
But
Your
it's an
identity
example, right?
changes.
It's an example. Like 4 years ago when I was in college, or let's say 6 years ago when I was in college and like not tied down or anything, like sure, like that's what I want to do. But like that was my environment then. That was who I was around. That was our thing. But now I think you grow up and you get to this point to where the obligations that you have and the responsibilities you have become second nature, to where you don't really think about it anymore. Like I don't have a desire to go to the bar. I don't have a desire to get drunk anymore. I don't have a desire to like party until 3 a.m. because I know what I have to do to be where I want to be in 3 to 5 years. And
Yeah.
that's not part of the formula.
And that's part of your identity now.
Exactly.
And actually, Brady, I think I've gotten more selfish. You know, now that I'm a husband and father and an entrepreneur, I've gotten more selfish with my time. I've gotten more selfish because before, you know, like I would give my time away for like stupid stuff, like going to the bar, drinking, right? To like, I would give my time away to people. I would clean outside, right? And now I know, like now I don't. Now I'm like more selfish, and I just like
Yeah, I
pay
see
for
that
it.
too. Yeah.
Right.
No, I see that too. And I think that's an interesting component, right? Because it's like getting less selfish with your time with the people that are important to you, but more selfish with your
With everything
time
else.
to everything else that doesn't matter. You know, if my buddies say, "Hey, you want to go to lunch on Friday or something like that," I'd probably say no because I'm working. I got stuff I got to do. But if my family was like, a wife, hey, do you want to get lunch on Friday? I say, sure. I'll block my calendar out and I'll do it. You
I
know?
always fall for those, man.
Yeah.
My wife always wants to invite me to eat pizza, and I always break my word. That's like the one thing that makes me break my word. Like my wife invited me to
Yeah.
eat pizza.
Yeah. No, but it's true. Like it's just that different dynamic of like you as you grow up, you become more selfish with your time towards certain things and less selfish towards what's truly important to you.
100%. So you're 26, husband, father, entrepreneur. When did you become a husband, man, and a father?
23 when we got married. We'll be married for 3 years next month. And then I became a dad at 24. Was 24? No? Yeah? No. I don't know. 24, 25. When I'm 26. I just turned 26. I think I just turned 25. When we had Boston, which is my son.
Cool. All right. So can you walk me through that journey? Like, so you know, I mentioned the freedoms and the way they're supposed to. I
Yeah.
mean, it's not supposed to be like that. I mean, everyone has their own journey, but physical freedom first, right? You like the idea in an ideal world, you would learn how to like take care of yourself and love yourself first, so that then you can love other people. Then you would find out who you are and what you want and where you're going and like master yourself. Then you would make a lot of money so that by the time you find the woman that you want to spend the rest of your life with and build a family with, you literally have everything figured out.
Yeah,
Right?
everything else. Yeah.
That's not how it happens most of the time. So how did it happen for you?
You know, it's interesting because that didn't happen at all that way. You know, and for me, when me and my wife got married, I wasn't an entrepreneur. I like kind of had that mindset where I would like read a lot of business books, but I never did anything with it. But being with her has motivated me to be a better version of myself. You know, that was the biggest thing, is I was around somebody who I truly cared about, but also pushed me to be better than I am. And not saying I was bad, but to just be the best version of myself. But it made me want to be a better man. We got married, and when we had our son, I was in the first half of a year with Vasa. But businesses, as you know, they take a while to grow, and you can either have like success right from the get-go, and we did have some success right from the get-go, but it was still growing. There's still a lot to do.
Sorry for the interruption. If you're an aspiring, established coach, course creator, author, and speaker, I want to extend an invitation to check out my free training on the podcast Cloak Track Framework by clicking on the link in the description of this podcast. On this training, you're going to learn how combining podcasting with a rare concept that very few people know about called The Cloak Track can help you build a multi-million-dollar network of successful people who can become your clients, put you in front of hundreds of your ideal clients with your message, coaching, courses, and books, help you become a best-selling author, get you booked to speak on stages, or even making an extra $237,600 in the next 6 months. Click on the link of the description of this podcast to learn about the 4 simple steps to make this work. Step number 1 is alignment. Aligning who you're trying to be, what you're trying to do, your goals and purpose with building your podcast so that podcasting is a vehicle that helps you achieve your goals. Step number 2 is leveraging the Cloak Track to find an unlimited supply of your ideal podcast guest. Step number 3 is leveraging the Cloak Track to close an interview with anyone, no matter how rich, famous, or out of your league they may seem. And step number 4 is the content machine, which is the key to tapping into other people's audiences. These are the 4 steps to making the podcast Cloak Track framework work, and I'm not going to hold anything back on this training. So click on the link in the description of this podcast, go and check it out. And once you've done that, if you feel like this would help, we also have a complimentary, free, absolutely free alignment call to get you started and show you exactly how to implement everything. Get access to the training right now, and I hope you enjoy the rest of this episode. Bye-bye.
But it was still like figuring out what we don't know yet. And then that just further motivated me. You have a son now, you have a little boy, and not that having a little boy or a little girl matters, like either one, but it was to that point where, okay, now not only do I have an obligation to my wife to be the best man I can be and to be the best husband I can be, but I have an obligation to my son to be the best dad I can be, but show him how to be a good man. And how am I going to be a good man? What is the definition of it for me? And it's understanding that you're going to have to do shit you don't want to do. You're going to have to work hard. You're going to have to be uncomfortable if you truly want to grow, not only physically, but also mentally. And that's where, have I been the best at physical? No, but I'm starting to get back into it. But I've always understood that if you feel good about your body, I operate much better, way better, because I'm not tired. I don't feel sluggish. I don't feel like shit and all that stuff. But then once you get to that point, it makes sense, because when you start to feel good and operate better, it makes you want to start focusing on yourself mentally and in your brain. And how can I personally develop myself to where I am the best version of myself, not only on the outside, but on the inside as well. So reading books and going through courses and going to conferences and watching YouTube videos and making a conscious approach to only put things into your brain or into your body that are going to make you better. And it's hard to do because you have everything else that's so much easier. Is it easier to cook a chicken, rice, and broccoli, or is it easier to go to McDonald's? You tell me. It's way easier to go to McDonald's, but it's doing the things that are harder so that you can be better down the road. So that was my journey, right? I got married, had a kid. I was already kind of focusing on my business. And then in the midst of all that, working on myself physically and mentally and financially, right? Growing the business, being very conscious about me and my wife spending. It's so different because once you start running a business, finances can kind of be a nightmare sometimes because you have so many different moving pieces. So then that flows over to us personally. It's like, okay, how can we be stewards of this money to not only do what we got to do of being conscious and frugal and stuff like that, but, growing our empire, growing our wealth. And, we're young, but setting yourself up for in a way to where you're going to be really well off down the road. And I think it comes down to working on yourself, one, but also just putting in a ton of work.
Yeah. So, man, so you said you weren't an entrepreneur before you met your wife, and she motivated you, and she was, one of the reasons you decided to want to become the best version of yourself, right? That she's like one of your drivers. So you weren't an entrepreneur before all of that happened. So did you have a job? What was your family
I had a
like?
job. Yeah, I was working in healthcare and in finance, and it was okay. But I just knew that it was one. I always knew that wasn't what I wanted to do, was work corporate. But again, you go that comfortable route of I can't jump ship. I'm married now. I have to make sure that I'm being financially and fiscally responsible. But then when you get to that point of okay, well, I can do something on the side. And my wife is motivating me to do that. So that's when I started the podcast. And I wasn't making money from the podcast, but I got introduced to a lot of cool people, but also got introduced to how businesses ran and how people did it. And I learned a lot. And it was just me putting myself outside of my comfort zone, because I knew, even though I'm in a current state that I know I won't be in 5 years, I have to do something now so that I won't be in this current state in 5 years. So that was where my wife kind of motivated me, and I was motivating myself as well to continue to be the best version of myself. And I knew that wasn't working a job. I wanted to do my own thing, and I knew it could provide a lot more value that way.
Cool. So you started your podcast. So how was your like childhood like? Did you grow up in an environmental and in a entrepreneurial environment, or were your parents an entrepreneur?
Yeah. So I remember my mom, she ran it was like a home decor store or something. I was young when she did that. And then my dad ran his own contracting business. So, but they also had jobs. So now my dad's a real estate agent and my mom is a accountant. So they've kind of done a little bit of both, but I think it was just kind of like, I don't know. It's weird because my siblings don't run their own stuff. My sister does music, so I guess you could argue she does. But in the traditional sense of like starting a business and running it and having employees, they don't do that. And I don't know. It's just one of those things where like I am okay with the risk. I'm okay with understanding that it's going to be harder. I'm okay with stretching myself to be uncomfortable, and not saying they're not, but I just always knew that's what I wanted to do. So that's where we're at now. And, when I was in college, I was really big into fitness in college. And I always thought that running a fitness clothing business would be a really cool idea, even though I had no idea. I followed Christian Guzman a lot for Alpha Elite. I don't know if you're familiar with that, who that is. But I followed him a lot. I was like, I'm going to start my own fitness clothing business. And I did it, and I lost money. But I was like, okay, now I understand how to like order products and sell them and build a website and all that stuff. So I did that in college, and then I shut it down right after. But no, I think it was always just kind of ingrained in me. Like, I don't know what it was, but I just always wanted to do something for myself and run my own business and be at the top of the food chain, for lack of a better phrase.
Cool. So you started your man. So just for like anyone that is listening, for anyone that will listen in the future, like one of the reasons I started my podcast is because of you and because of your podcast. Right. And the, like, I had this idea of starting my podcast, doing what I'm doing right now for like almost like a year ago, man. And I just started it 6 months ago. You want to know what was keeping me from starting my podcast?
What?
Myself, my mindset, just a limiting belief, like the story that I was telling myself. Right. So you started your podcast, started interviewing all of these successful people. You started getting into an environment in which people talk about running successful businesses, about fitness, about family, about freedom. And you started surrounding yourself with these types of mindsets. So like, how did it impact you?
Yeah. So when I started the podcast, my first guest was one of my buddies from college who runs his own, he's a personal trainer. And I didn't really know that I was going to get introduced to bigger guests. I just was like, hey, I'm going to run a podcast. It was about personal finance in the beginning. So it was boring stuff, talking about, like, no one cares about that to listen to, at least. So then I got introduced to another guy by the name of John Danes, who my brother-in-law knew, and he was in the entrepreneurial world already, but he knew other people. And from there, I don't want to say that John Danes catapulted everything, because it definitely did. I put the work in, but I was able to get in front of a lot of people, and it was just kind of like a domino effect. And I think it just came down to consistent action. And I remember I started that podcast in August of 2019, and in November of 2019, I flew out to Vegas because Travis Chappell, I think you've had on your show before, was doing an event. And he had Mark Brazil there. He had Dan Fleischman there. He had Brad Lee there. He had other people there. And I went. Didn't know anybody. Me and my wife both went. Didn't know anybody there. But I was surrounded by people who were successful and had done big things. And I was like, okay, like this is where I want to be. Like, I've been to conferences for corporate businesses, and they're so boring and everybody hates their job. And I'm like, I don't want that. I don't want to grow up hating my day to day, because you spend a lot of your life working. You really do. And if I'm going to spend a lot of my life working on something that literally means nothing to me, how am I going to be fulfilled and be the best version of myself and be the husband and dad I'm supposed to be? I think it all ties in together to a certain extent. So, yeah, I mean, the podcast was great. I eventually got to interview the first CEO of Netflix. It was really cool. And I grew a lot in the process. But but that really catapulted me, I think, really gaining the confidence to start my own business. I think people are so scared to start their own business because one, they know zero people, they don't know who to even look to help them grow it. And that was me. But then I run the podcast, I get introduced to people. And now it's like, even if I'm not exactly like financially investing in what they have to offer, I at least know who to follow and to watch on YouTube and stuff like that to grow. And then I'll feel comfortable making those investments because I'll know how to actually use that investment strategically. Right. So that kind of grew and grew and grew. And I'm still learning today. I am still learning today. And I don't think you ever stop, but you have to have that conscious idea and that conscious approach of, if I stop learning and if I stop trying to be the best version of myself, I will plateau or I will fail. And that is not going to get me to where I want to be in the next 3 to 5 years.
Yeah, man, that was that was very valuable and full of great insights. And actually, the biggest benefit for me since starting my podcast and after interviewing over 70 high level 6, 7, and even 9, 8, and even 9-figure entrepreneurs, the biggest benefit for me has been like a shift in my identity, right? Like a shift in how I look myself, a shift in who I believe myself to be, right? Because now I believe in myself. All of a sudden, I believe in myself, right? After speaking to like dozens and dozens of these successful men, like you said, that's what gave you like the courage to start your own business, because all of a sudden you're starting to surround yourself with people who have their own businesses, and you start to realize that they put their pants one leg at a time as well. So like if they could do it, well, you can as well, right? And every time I get on like these podcasts with people who are more successful than me, man, it's like putting a big mirror in front of me, right? And I'm able to see all of the good things that I have and all the things that I have yet to develop. And it's been it's been amazing, right? And I really like what you mentioned, that like you got one person on your podcast which knew other people, and then who knew more people. I call that the cloak track, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I actually now I'm actually basing my entire business out of that one term, which is a cloak track, right? And yeah, I've also grown a lot, man. And thank you very much for that. I think I've expressed gratitude a couple of times to you, because like you, I don't know, like if I hadn't listened to your episodes, I wouldn't have started my podcast either. Maybe I wouldn't have started my podcast, and I wouldn't be helping other people start their own podcast. And like none of what's happening would be happening. So yeah, thank you for that, man. And cool. So yeah, so like for anyone out there trying to like become the best version of themselves, build a business or anything like that, you need mindset, right? And the fastest way for you to change your mindset is for you to sort of like change the people that you surround yourself with, right? And like one of the easiest way to do that is to start your own podcast, talking to those amazing people that you want to talk to, that you want to be like. So that's worked for me. I bet it worked for everyone else. And so let's fast forward a little bit, man. And like tell me, what is it that you told me what you're working on today, but maybe get more, like a little bit more specific. So you just focus on Vasa. Is that your one thing?
Yeah. So we have Vasa, which kind of branches onto a few different things. Vasa in and of itself is growing quite a bit. We added 3 new team members last week, and we'll be adding more over the next few months. But it's one of those things to where like, and it's hard to even stress this, man, because for people out there that are running a business, the first year and a half is hard. I'm not going to lie, because you don't really know, you might not be making as much income as you truly, the income you're making does not match the work you're putting in. And you're like, man, like, is this even worth it? And then you quit. And that's what a majority of people do. But I'm telling you right now, because it's happened to us over the past year, is you will hit that point to where like, you're doing okay. And you're like, all right, this is okay. Like, this is steady. This is definitely not the growth I was expecting, but it is what it is. And then bam, things just randomly start to take off. And it's just, I don't know what it is, but it's something in the business world that just everything starts coming together and people start recognizing you, and it's great. And so I implore people out there listening, like, just keep going. It is hard and it is tough. If you feel like you have to quit for personal reasons, or you've been doing it for 20 years and it's still not working, like that, there's no shame in quitting. I will say there's no shame in quitting and going a different direction. But if you feel like you need to keep going, then keep going. It will pay off. It will become worth it. But like now we're working on Vasa. It's growing. We're growing our team. We're not only staffing, but we're also managing the resources, because we we serve two different types of people. We serve the clients, we got to make money, and we do it pretty well, but we also are serving the virtual assistants because we're managing them and making sure they're happy, et cetera. So it's putting the different pieces and components to be able to serve both parties efficiently, to where, everybody still has time freedom and financial freedom within the business as well. I'm really big on serving our team and making sure that they're taken care of, et cetera. So that's what we're doing. But we're also venturing into the tech space a little bit, where we will be creating a platform for remote workforce management, specifically for VAs, to make it easier, more efficient, more effective. And
Software.
Yeah. And I don't know when that'll come out. I can't really say too much about it, but it's, it'll be good. I think it'll be really good, and it'll be pretty, I'm going to say, hopefully transformational in the world. Obviously on our end, though, I'm a really transparent person. I understand I've never pushed a software before. So if we have a software, I have to push it effectively. It has to provide value. We have to have a team behind it, et cetera. And it's growing myself to be able to provide that value in a completely different niche. So that's what we're focused on nowadays, man. And again, it's just grinding. It's being consistent. And, not to continue to ramble, but when you're grinding and being consistent, and you might know this as well, or have felt it, where it might get boring. It's because it's the same day after day. You're doing the same thing every single day, but you understand, even if I don't want to do this right now, I have to do it because I have to be consistent. I have to have the discipline. I have to work hard. And that happens like 10% of the time, right? The other time I'm like driven, motivated, inspired, but I'm a human. So there's also times where I'm like, man, I'd rather do anything but this right now. But you have to keep pushing toward, you have to be consistent.
So are you planning, so you're building software and you're adding all this technology and stuff. So are you planning on exiting your company?
I don't want to be completely honest with you. I think it's one of those things where I'd rather grow it, keep it private, own it, and just fund my life. Do what I want to do. I think when you exit, like, and I've heard this, and who knows, right? Who knows what the future holds? But I've heard that people who exit, you get this large sum of money and you're like, oh, that's great. And then the next day you're like, well, now what? Now what do I do? And I think
that's scary, huh?
It's scary because, thinking about it, Alex, like you put so many hours and days and weeks into building something. And now at the flip of a switch, you have all this money, which is great, but money can't buy happiness. And I think a lot of people have put a portion of their happiness in growing said thing because they love the grind and the process. And then we don't have that anymore. You're like, well, now I have all the time in the world to go sit by the pool and go on vacations and hang out with my family. And like, yes, I want to hang out with my family every single day, but I also want to like build something. And now you get this large sum of money, you've exited, and you're like, well, shit, like I can only sit by the pool so long before I don't want to sit by the pool anymore. I can only drink so much before I just like don't want to drink anymore. So it's like, you got to be careful. You got to truly know what you want out of life before making a decision like that.
Yeah, cool, man. So yeah, software is going to be a journey, because software is like one of those things that everyone who works for you or with you while building that is smarter than you.
Oh,
right?
yeah, exactly.
Like all these techie people, right? Who like know about coding and know about technology and know about all the things that you don't know. And now you got to manage people who know more than you know, which could be a little bit, challenging.
But at the same time, you'll see quotes by Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk who talk about, specifically Elon Musk, saying, I didn't go to an Ivy League school, but people who did work for me.
Yeah.
So even though you're like, yeah, but you're smarter than me of how to build technology, but I know how to run a business and grow it better than you do. That's the difference. But you work together as a team. It's not to like butt heads and say, oh, I'm smarter than you, I'm better than you, blah, blah, blah. It's to know that you fulfill a specific piece of my business that I need better than I can do it. And that is exactly why I hired you. Mm-hmm. I'm not hiring someone that knows less than me, because why? That's a waste of money. You hire people that know more than you in a specific area.
100%. And then, so just to go back to what you said right now, that like when you don't quit, when you hold yourself in the game, you keep on playing the game, you don't quit, like all of a sudden things click and they start to grow really fast, right? Which is something that I've experienced myself, man. But yeah, it's hard, man. Like, and then it was a couple of months ago. So now I have like this big ass calendar. That's how it's called. Big ass calendar by Jesse Itzler. And I track my emotions. Huh?
Yeah. I've heard of that. I've heard that before.
Yeah. So I track my emotions. So like on one side, you can see like the 12 months, right? The 12 months. And then on the other side, like there's 12 rows. Each row has 31 squares, right? So like you can track everything for the entire year. And I track like my habits, the habits that I'm committed to every single day that are going to take me to my goals. And then another thing that I track is my emotions. And, I color it, right? Like, have you seen this like prism, this like triangle with like the emotions all the way to the bottom is like low vibration, and then all the way to the top. Yeah. So based on that, I track my emotions and I color it. And a couple of months, like 6 months ago, man, I was like on this emotional roller coasters, right? And will you track improves, will you track grows? So like I've been tracking my emotions, and now I'm more aware of what causes me to feel whatever I feel, and I'm much more like stable. And but why am I saying this? Oh yeah, so the reason I'm saying this is because it's hard. Like it's hard. Like you get in your own way. Like you want to quit, but if you don't, and you just keep on pushing, and you keep on embracing the process, and you keep on working on yourself, investing on yourself, and growing and learning, it'll come to a point in which everything falls into place, right? And it starts working, and it's going to be amazing, and it's going to feel great. And like the reason that happens is because like there's not one thing that you gotta know, like one skill that you gotta have that will make it work, right? Like you gotta go through the process and gain skill after skill after skill after skill after skill, and all of a sudden you have this stack of skills which will be enough to be able to help you make your business grow, right? And that's why this happens, and that's what I wanted to say, man. So what do you think about that?
No, I think it's good. I think you're exactly right. It's like people plateau because they stop growing, and they stop growing because they stop putting the work in. So you just can't stop. And like for me, right, like I'm a pretty structured person. I have to be, but I already was that way, so it makes it easier to be a structured person. But I live and die by my calendar. I live and die by the tasks and stuff that I assign to myself. I use platforms like apps and stuff to help me like track projects and tasks and habits and stuff like that. But every single morning, right? It's the same thing every single day. Every single morning, I wake up at 5. I do a devotion. I read the Daily Stoic. I will check personal finances. I will do a daily reflection, basically saying, okay, how am I feeling? What am I grateful for? What am I looking forward to today? What would make today a win? Stuff like that. I'll drink a glass of water after I brush my teeth. I will read the morning brew. It's like a condensed news that I just read in my phone because I want to keep up with it, but I don't have time to read like a whole news article and newspapers and stuff like that. Just morning brew. I'll go work out, take my vitamins, but I'm tracking all of that. But when you think about like, man, what if I just woke up one morning and didn't have anything on my to-do list? Like, what if I just didn't have any habits I was tracking? It'd feel good, right? Because you're like, man, I'm free. I don't have to do anything. I'm free. But what happens the next day? I feel like shit about myself because I stopped putting the work in. I stopped growing. And now I let my foot off the gas. And I think that's what's important, and what puts pressure on people like me and you is you have your foot on the gas for so long. We understand that you have to put the work in. You have to keep growing. You have to stay consistent. And like, that's how you truly reach your goals. But it's also a sense of pressure to where if you even take your foot off the gas a little bit, what happens? What breaks? What stops going right? And what starts going wrong? So it's just keeping in tune with that and understanding like, yes, you have to put the work in, but above everything else, consistency is at the core of everything. So how can you continue to put the work in, but put yourself in a way to where you can be consistent with it? And I think that's something that you've done as well. That's something that I've done. And it's just being really self-aware and in tune with yourself about what makes you tick. Like you talk about emotions, or a lot of people don't understand that. They don't understand what makes them tick, what makes them happy, what makes them pissed off. And when you know that, and when you know what makes you feel good about yourself, you just do more of that thing. And then it's weird how your emotions it's weird how you're happier when you do things that make you happy. People just don't get that for some reason. It seems like it should be common sense. But again, you got to keep working. You got to put the work in. You got to understand what makes you tick. You got to be consistent, all that stuff. And you will grow no matter what. It's inevitable. You just got to keep going. Time will tell.
And then so like, how do you keep on grinding and stuff, right? Without like, quote unquote, taking your foot off the gas. Well, you take time off. Simple.
Yeah. I take Sundays off, and that's okay. People say, don't take a day off. And I'm like, I take Sundays off, but guess what? It's on my calendar so that I know that Monday through Saturday, here is what I have to do. And here's the problem, Alex, is a lot of people will take their foot off. Like, okay. And I say taking the foot off the gas, don't do it. You can take your foot off the gas if you plan for it and if you're strategic about it, but you can't just do it just because haphazardly you just want to. you have to be consistent in that respect. So like for me in my calendar,
structure, even with that.
You structure and that's your structure, right? Like Sunday is my take my foot off the gas day. And that's fine. But it's built in my calendar to where I know Monday through Saturday, here's the habits I have to do. Here's the tasks I have to do. Here's the projects I have to do. Boom. I go to Sunday and I feel good about that day being what it's supposed to be.
You enjoy it and don't feel guilty about like, I'm not working, right?
Exactly. You feel good about it. And it comes down to being structured and being consistent and knowing what makes you tick. You know, like my days are fucking crazy. Like right after this, I have calls until 5 p.m. But like that's okay because it's built into my calendar of what I have to do to really get the job done and move the needle forward.
Cool. So man, let me ask the first question of the 5 questions that I always finish every single interview with. The first question is, what a piece of advice would you give your 20-year-old self if you could to make their journey a little bit, I don't know, faster, better, more efficient, more effective, not change anything or redo your life. Just give your 20-year-old self some advice. What would that be?
Start a business then. I think it's the best way to learn is just do it. So for me, it's like, you know, if I would have started a business 4 years earlier, how much farther ahead would I be now? And like hindsight's 20, of course, but I think it's that my advice to my 20-year-old self is just do it. And I think that can be with anything. Just do it. I know that sounds so cliche because Nike says it, but life is so short. And if the grand scheme of things, when you think people are thinking about you or talking shit about you, whatever, no one cares about you. Nobody cares about you. Nobody cares about your goals. Just keep pushing forward and worry about yourself and you'll be fine.
Awesome. The second question is around mindset. What is one mindset shift that you've had that you can share that you think has contributed to your success?
That nobody cares. Nobody cares.
Exactly. Fuck,
and it's one of those things to where like you think everybody thinks what you're thinking about yourself, but nobody cares. Everyone's thinking that exact same thing about themselves. So
that's the matrix.
Nobody cares about your goals. Nobody cares about your drive. Nobody cares about what you're doing. They only care when something significant happens in your life and they want to tell you congratulations. Other than that, worry about yourself, worry about your grind, and everything else will fall into place.
But yeah, man, that's the number one thing that holds entrepreneurs back from doing whatever it is they want to do, right? Like fear of what others might think, fear of being judged, fear of being heard, fear of not being heard, of not being seen, and what other they're like their insecurities that people think they're going to be judged about, right? But in reality, all of those people are also in fear, are also thinking about what all the other people are thinking about them, when in reality, all of those people that they think are thinking about them are thinking about what they are thinking about them. And like understanding that and really internalizing that is literally unplugging yourself from the matrix. And when you stop giving a crap about all of that and you just do you and go for what you want, everything changes. The third question is mindset map clarity, right? So we have what is like a piece of advice, strategy, tactic, or anything to like help people be more clear, have more clarity in their life?
Yeah, you know, I struggle with this for a little bit as well, and you know what's really helped me is when you think about the goal that you have 5 years from now, like that can get overwhelming because then you're like, okay, I need to be a billionaire in 5 years and 0 action steps. It's like, what? Well, of course there's 0 clarity because you don't even know what to do because you haven't mapped it out. So instead of looking at 5 years from now, it's like, how could I end the year this year with being really happy and feel productive about how the year went? Like that's different for everybody. And then start breaking that up. And you have to break all of that down into daily action. And that sounds like a lot, but it's worth an exercise. Spend a Sunday, a few hours, just like breaking down your daily actions to truly get where you want to get, because that is what's going to produce results is your daily actions. It's not going to be thinking about your goals or manifesting and I know all that matters, or, you know, affirmations or anything. It's what are you doing? What are your actions? What are you executing? And you have to break that down daily. And when you break it down daily, you will begin to get clarity about, okay, this is what I have to do to truly reach that goal and to really be the best version of myself, et cetera. And I know there's different versions of clarity of who am I? What am I doing with my life? Blah, blah, blah. I view clarity as what do I want? How am I going to get it? So I have to break that down daily.
Cool. And then the reason you do like daily is because like it's all about the process, right? All
about the process.
So instead of fixing yourself, getting fixated on the results, get fixated on the daily things that you got to do to get to the result, right? And then instead of like you said, it's not thinking or like there's not going to be like this one main thing that will get you to where you want to go. No, it's like the little things, day in and day out, day in and day out. So 100%. Mindset map motion. So what is one habit that you have, man, that you think has contributed to your success?
So I think probably I have a lot of habits, but they're small. The habit that I probably like the most, it's two. It's every single morning where I do a daily the daily stoic, where it's just kind of like a philosophical statement of being the best version of yourself and thinking the right way and etc. But then there's the devotion. And I think that truly sets the day because it gets me thinking of how can I be the best version of myself from a business and personal and financial perspective. And then from the devotional, how can I be the best version of myself from a spiritual perspective today? And it gets me thinking about my day in the right way. And it's interesting because how many people start their day by just scrolling social media and looking at the news and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, that can literally dictate how your entire day goes. But if you start your day with something that is empowering and helps you develop personally, I think it's good. So I think that really sets the day, the mark for my day. And I suggest everybody to, whatever it is, set something that you do first thing in the morning that really sets the mark for how the rest of the day is going to go. Don't fill your head with shit.
Yeah.
Just you got to be conscious about that.
100%. The last one is measure. So what are your thoughts on measuring and tracking, brother?
Measuring what?
Measuring and tracking.
Everything. I mean, it's everything. You got to measure what matters. If something isn't measured, it doesn't get managed. So we track everything internally from a business perspective, like KPIs, key performance indicators. One is fulfillment on Invasa, like how long does it take us to fulfill a specific client. That's important to know, but also personally, like it sounds weird, but I track my weight once a week. What is my weight? How is it going up and down? I track PRs for working out. I track how many books I'm reading. I measure like how long it takes me to read books. I measure my finances and I project out where I'm going to be at the end of the year. All that stuff. I do all of that.
That's
and
crazy.
I'm an analytical number based person because I come from finance, but I think it's important to force yourself to do that as well, because I think numbers don't lie. Yeah. I can say to myself all day, I'm going to be a millionaire at the end of the year. I'm going to be a billionaire at the end of this month. I'm going to own Amazon at the end of, next week. But if there's no measured tracking to actually reaching that goal, then how do you know you're going to be able to do that? So, and that's where numbers come into play. So I think tracking is everything.
It's crazy, man. You track a bunch of stuff, but you know what? Me too.
You have to. You have to.
Man. So mindset, map, motion, measure, money. Right? If you get those four right, you'll get the money. You'll get the results physically, emotionally, sentimentally, financially. So, man, I've really enjoyed this. And if people want to know more about Brady, you dropped some bombs today. You dropped a lot of wisdom. People want to know more about you. Maybe they need some like staff, some staff, some virtual assistants. Maybe they need help with their SOPs. Like, where can they find you? What is it that you're offering right now? And yeah, tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah. So you can go to our website, vastaffing.agency, and we provide staffing services there and we'll manage the resources for you. The pricing is all on the website as far as what we charge up front and what we charge hourly. And if you want to reach and get in touch with me, it's just at Brady Morgan _. I'm an open book. If you have any questions or want to know anything about what we do, how we do it, and why we do it, completely open to that. But I think on the other piece with staffing virtual assistants, I think as people are growing a team, it's important to have the staff in place in a cost-effective manner that's going to help you grow. I think, us as men, we want to do everything ourselves, and women, everyone has an ego when you're running a business and you want to do everything yourself, and that's fine in the beginning, but you hit that point to where you have to delegate, you have to let go. So that's where we come into play to really help business owners do that.
Awesome. Do you have any, coaching, any programs, any events coming up or anything like that?
No coaching, no events. It's really just staffing. You can get with us if you want to work with us on a level where we build out an entire operating system for you. It's very expensive, but we can do it for you and we can talk about pricing at that point. But as far as coaching and events, no, we don't do any of that.
Awesome, man. So that's it then. Thank you very much, man. I really appreciate you. And actually, would you say your podcast changed your life?
Yeah, it paved the way for everything I'm at, or where I'm at today professionally. So yeah, I would say so.
My podcast changed my life, man. And like in ways that you could never imagine. And one of the reasons is because I've been intentional about it. And I'm going to have a link, right? Along with all of your links and all of that and all of your information. I'm going to have a special link just for the Brady Morgan episode. It's going to be something/Brady Morgan. And that link will take any listener who might be interested in surrounding themselves with high-level people who may want to start a podcast on a free training, A to Z training on how to start, build, launch, grow, monetize, and automate $1 million network building podcast. So just for this, just a special link just for this episode, I'm going to add that in there as well, man. So Thank you for being here. Really appreciate it. I enjoyed it, man. Thank you.
Awesome. Appreciate it, man.
Bye-bye, brother.
Yep. Later.
Thank you for watching the Gentleman's Success, Happiness, and Fulfillment Talk podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, share it with one friend, leave us a comment, and let us know. 99% of people never leave a review or comment, but we love and are very thankful with the 1% of you who do. If there's something or someone you want to see on this podcast, send me a message on Instagram at Alex_Ramirez1020 and let me know. As a thank you for that, I have an amazing surprise for each and every one of you who does take the time to leave us a comment or review on YouTube or one of the major podcasting platforms